Hi everyone, welcome back to another tutorial of CLO. Today we will have a look and go through our OEM workflow together. We'll have a look at CLO-SET and also at the CLO program and how to work between them. So let's just imagine a person in charge of the brand called, asked me to create a sample. So now this means I will go to the workroom here where the person in charge invited me to check it. So I logged into CLO-SET, went to the workroom the person in charge invited me, and entered the desired season of the brand called Sunday, just like this. Within the season, it has been divided into different workrooms. So the style I was asked for is a top. That means I can go here into tops. And here I will go into the style that has been uploaded as a blank style. And as soon as you got the style open, you can look here on the top right corner under attachment to find everything that comes with the style attached here, like DXF and PDF. So by clicking on the icon for attachment, you can see that two files have been uploaded like this. So I will simply download both of the files and then we can start with the actual work. To download, I will click on the three little dots next to my DXF file, then click on download itself. And in the meantime, I can hover over my PDF, click on it and get a preview. This way I can check it's a women's knitted top with a V-neck. So I downloaded now the PDF and the pattern file that I received and can now continue by starting working on the garment itself. As soon as I have then CLO open, which you can see here, I can either add everything to the library with a folder or go to File and click on Import. So here I can select the DXF pattern directly that I want to work on and now work from there. If I simply double click on it, I'll get up my Add DXF window, can also drag and drop it over. And here I just make sure to choose the right settings. For example, swap the cutting line with the sewing line in order to get the correct outline, optimize all curve points, and then click OK. So my DXF pattern gets loaded into my pattern window. And in the next step, I will bring in an avatar from my library. If I'm quickly checking at my PDF, I can see here that there was even a given name of the avatar, so I make sure I get the right one. So here the CLO avatar US ASTM Missy Straight 2 is stated to be used. This means I will go to my CLO library and load the size. So to load the avatar, just select the avatar in the library. Here on the left side, go into the avatar menu to female version 2 and then select one of the avatars, whichever you prefer. Can add it by double clicking. And once I have this, I can go into my size folders and enter here the according fit menu. So here I'm looking for Missy Straight, which would be this one, double clicking also here, and then simply make sure I add size number 2, and I can do so by also simply double clicking on the AVS file. This way the size of my avatar changes automatically, so then I can close my library and start the work on the actual garment. For an efficient workflow in CLO, it can be really useful to use the function of symmetrical pattern pieces. So I would have to delete half of my patterns and then later on apply this function, symmetric pattern with sewing. So I go ahead by selecting the pattern pieces that can be made symmetrical and delete half of them. Also this one. And then I can just create a symmetrical copy. But before I do this, I sew together first what I already can sew. Here I choose the free sewing tool and then, for example, connect the side seams here just by clicking once to start and once to end the sewing line. Do the same on the other side, and then go ahead closing all seams that I can already close, including the sleeve and the armhole here. So here I will go and sew notch by notch, first attaching the notch from the armpit to the front. So in order to stick to the instructions that I got with my pattern, I ignore the blue dot and just push the sewing line to each notch to stretch out the sleeve accordingly as the pattern requires. Go around the whole way until the complete sleeve is added. Then to continue the work on the sleeve, I will connect it to the cuff. So I will attach the cuff first to the main sleeve by doing this with the free sewing tool again, so it can ease in the sewing line accordingly. And because later on the cuff will have to get folded in, I will now have to sew it on also onto each other. That means this one here will be my fold line, and I need to connect the side onto the other part, so I then can connect the top to the hem and the side seam to the other side seam. And because this cuff will get folded, we also need to sew this up and activate this baseline here. I use the trace tool to do so because this baseline right now is inactive, and when we activate it, it will become an internal line. So I just click on it with the trace tool, press enter. And then I can use the free sewing tool to connect the side seams where it will get folded onto each other, just like this. Here I need to make sure my sewing line notches, which indicate my direction, are facing each other, that later on when the seams are laying flat on top of each other, they also won't get reversed. Also, in case of overlapping sewing lines, don't forget to change the sewing line type to be turned, so CLO knows to simulate it flat. Just as explained here, when you simulate with a custom angle, the software will put the pattern pieces next to each other, which is causing this gap in case they're laying actually on top of each other. So you need to set the sewing line type in the property editor to be turned. Once this is set, the simulation will then know to simulate these pattern pieces laying flat on top of each other without this gap here where the seam is. Now just repeat the same process on the other side of the little cuff. Just make sure the sewing line notches also face each other for the direction, and set the sewing line type in the property editor to be turned for this one as well. As the next step, I will then have to connect the layers with itself. Also here I set the property editor to be turned, and then I just have to attach the side seam of the cuff to the other side seam of the cuff. And if I start doing this with the free sewing tool along the whole side seam, you will see that I get a notification that seam lines are overlapping. So I can just click OK here, because I need to take in consideration that I can only sew one part onto each other. So I'll go for this one, the one on top. Just choose the free sewing tool here, leave the sewing line type as it is, and then I have connected my whole cuff to the sleeve. So before we will attach the neck and the hem, we will just duplicate one side with symmetrical editing, which here I make my selection, right mouse click, and then select symmetric pattern with sewing. I could also perfectly use the shortcut Ctrl D. Then place the copy next to my pattern that I already have, simply aligning it here a little bit. And this way I also don't have to redo the sewing. I just need to finish the sewing at the center back and the center front, because so far I didn't do it yet. Just like this, here I'm using the free sewing tool as well to be quick. And then in the next part I can attach the neck and the hem. First of all, I will start by connecting this pattern piece here to my neck. To have a better overview where I want to sew, I will also re-manage my layout. Just bring this closer so I can see, okay, this bit here will be my center front, and then I can go from there and attach it around the whole neckline. And to have the sewing a bit more easy, I will first of all cut one half of this pattern piece away so I can delete it and then unfold it symmetrically. I will do so with the trace tool. Just select the baseline at the center, right mouse click and click cut. Then change to transform pattern tool, delete one side, and with the edit pattern tool, right mouse click on the center front and then choose unfold symmetric editing with linked sewing. This way I will only have to sew one side and don't have to worry about the other one because it will get copied automatically. To sew it on, I will choose the free sewing tool up from my menu bar or shortcut M, just like this. And then I start from the center front to the first notch. Also here, make sure to ignore the blue point this time because you want the pattern piece to get stretched out according to the notches. And also here you can see perfectly how it's getting copied on the other side. And then I just continue on the right hand side as one, from the front to the shoulder seam, and then from the shoulder seam back towards the back on the other side. Here I have to pan over to my back pattern, continue also here, make sure to continue from the right hand side as worn to the notch, and then finish the last bit here as well on the pattern piece. Once it's attached to the body, you can also see on the pattern piece itself that the neckband has a baseline that I will, again using the trace tool and hitting enter, convert into an internal line so I can later fold it over. And also I have to make sure to connect the side seams here onto each other and again set the sewing line type to be turned before I attach it and sew it together in the center back. Now I can also attach the pattern piece where it folds over, seam to seam. Same process here. I have to set the sewing line type to be turned. And now I can attach the hem around the body piece. Also here I have to sew the side lines and to attach it to the body. So first I will attach it step by step. This time I'm using the segment sewing tool for it. I just go one way around, starting at the right hand side, and then you can see here it also with the arrows. Just stick to one direction and it will wrap around later on perfectly. Then I connect the side lines again to each other and use the trace tool to turn the center baseline into an internal line so it can fold over. Now with the segment sewing tool, I also connect the side seams here with each other. Set the sewing line type to be turned. And then also connect the side seam from one side to the other side. Once this is done, I can sew the folded part on top of each other and also here set the sewing line type to be turned. And just because I forgot it earlier, I can also now connect the center back of the neck pattern piece with each other. So then I'm finally done with my whole sewing and can continue with the arrangement around my avatar. Because we have sewn everything already well together, I can now make my 3D window a little bit bigger so I can see everything better. And I will first of all use the Reset 2D Arrangement button to also reset my 2D layout just for better orientation. If I click here, you can see how it's mirroring the layout from the 2D pattern window to the 3D window. And then I turn on my arrangement points either in the toggle bar on the left side or by using Shift F. And because all my pattern pieces are hiding my avatar, right now I would have a hard time to reach all my arrangement points. I select all pattern pieces with Ctrl A, move them upwards, and if I now zoom in, I have a clear view on all arrangement points, and I can select the pattern pieces by selecting them directly in the 2D window. So just click on one. Because they are symmetrical, it will automatically place it on the other side as soon as you hover over. Just as you can see here, you get this preview of these gray ghosts, and if you click on an arrangement points, you have directly placed the pattern piece. I also have to make sure when I'm placing my sleeve to pick the correct side. So just pay attention to the sides and then hover over and pick one of the arrangement points on top of the arm. Same applies for the cuff. Just make sure you place it next to the sleeve and then just make sure you select one of the arrangement points for the waist. So here you can then rearrange this pattern piece. The arrangement points just give a rough placement and then you can have this pattern piece selected. Hover over to the property editor and under arrangement, if you scroll down, you can modify the position on the y-axis. You can modify the offset so it will be a bit less curved, and you can also modify the arrangement on position X if you would like to. In this case, we are fine. For the neck, I also just pick one of the arrangement points, see if it's opening at the back, and then also here I'm simply tweaking the offset so it will be a bit more open for a smooth simulation. And then I can turn off my arrangement points again in the avatar display of my toggle bar on the left and then check if I have sewn everything correctly. Here I can also check my garment view display also in the little toggle bar on the left. If you hover over the little garment here, you can see several settings. This time I will turn on the sewing threads, say show threads. As soon as I do so, I will see all my sewing in colorful lines, so I can check if I have reversed sewing anywhere. This time it looks good, and then I can continue folding my cuffs and my hem. Here I will use these internal lines. If I click on it in 2D, you will see it's there in 3D as well. With the fold arrangement tool, you can hover over this pattern piece, click on this line, then a folding gizmo appears and you can use it to fold your pattern piece manually over, so later on it will get sewn correctly. If you ever want to check these internal lines, you can also turn them on in the garment view display. Same for the cuff. Here you can see them now very clearly and use again the fold arrangement tool to fold these cuffs up. And then as a last pattern piece, I can do the same for the hem down here. Then choose my select move tool, rearrange the pattern pieces a little bit so it won't cause too much intersection when simulating. And then if I go around, I see everything looks correct. No seams look reversed. You would see directly when the threads look crossed. Also looking at the neck, the hem and the cuffs, all of these pattern pieces are double layered. And if I don't tweak my particle distance a little bit, the left fabric side of the inside would poke through the outside. So I can just make here sure that I also modify my mesh, just turning this on in the mesh view of my toggle bar to show you the difference. So if I change back to textured surface, I have still the pattern pieces selected. Go to simulation properties in the property editor and set the particle distance value down already to 10 to prevent intersection when I simulate. Once all these settings are completed, I can then finally simulate by hitting the space bar. And if I rotate around my avatar, everything looks fine and my garment itself is completed. One last thing I would like to do is here to merge the center front and the center back seam. So here I'm choosing the edit pattern tool. And if I just simply click on one of the center back or center front segments here, right mouse click and select merge, you can see I'll get this information window. It won't work, so I have to make sure I select the complete center front seam here, then right mouse click, try merge again. And this time it worked. Then I simply need to repeat the same process on the center back, and it's also copying the symmetry on these merge pattern pieces, which you can see on the dotted line in the middle. And if you then simulate, you have now one complete pattern piece at the front and at the back. In the next step, I would like to change the pose of my avatar, so I make sure I enter the avatar folder in my library, the female one, and then go to pose. Here I can select from a pose that I want. This time I double click on the attention pose, simply press OK here, and then my avatar already automatically starts simulating until it's reached the pose that I want. Simulation here will stop automatically as well. I can do a little rearrangement manually, and then for better quality I will also set the resolution higher, which means I will have to reduce the particle distance, so I make my mesh smaller. I select my complete pattern, enter a particle distance of 5 and then simulate, and then you can also see a difference in the resolution of the garment itself. Once everything is finished, I will take a look at my technical sheet, which states I have to use a knit terry of 100% cotton and also these colors here with Pantone color codes accordingly. And then going back to CLO, I will make sure to find the cording material first. Here I enter my library, go into my fabric folder, where are 50 base fabrics. I will have a look in order to find a knit terry. And if I hover over, I always see more information. This one looks right, like it has 100% cotton. So I can just drag it over onto my fabric number 1 in the object browser. And then like this, I can automatically assign this knit terry with 100% cotton to my complete garment. Also, to get the simulation more correct, I'll simulate again. Now it's changing according to the physics of this fabric here in the object browser that I just applied. And once this is completed, I will then stop the simulation and take again a look at the details, which has also changed because of the new material. If I look at my fold lines here, it's still a bit sharp, so I first turn off the internal lines in my view menu, and then I see it still doesn't look very soft and nice. So I pick the edit pattern tool, select all these internal lines. I have to zoom in a bit more so I can select them precisely. I can select them all at once and then take a look at the fold menu in the property editor. First of all, I will reduce the fold angle even more to 10, and then I turn off the option of fold rendering. If I then simulate again, I will see how these edges don't look as sharp anymore and everything will look nice and smooth. If I then want to enhance the quality of my overall garment, I stop the simulation and I can use the high resolution button in my 3D menu, which you will find up there in the menu bar. Simply click on high res garment, which means high resolution garment. Here an information window pops up where you can set the particle distance for the garment overall. Usually the particle distance is set to a default value of 20. Once we want to improve the quality, we will usually set it down to 5. We could even set it lower, but in this case we will type in a value of 5, and then every pattern piece which is in a tolerance between 5 and 20 default particle distance will get affected. Also, I can change the additional thickness collision value, which is as default set to 2.5. Here it will get reduced to 1 millimeter of thickness collision, which will allow the pattern pieces to lay more flat on top of each other, as well as the avatar skin offset will also get reduced to 0 in this case. This will also reduce the gap between the garment and the avatar itself. You can always reverse this process under choosing low resolution properties under the same menu in the 3D menu bar up on the top. In this case, we will then press OK and simulate again. And as soon as I do so, you will also see that the little arrow on the top left corner of the 3D menu turns into a double arrow. So when I simulate now, it means it's simulating under high resolution and also takes a bit longer to finish the whole simulation for the garment. You will also see it's turned into red. This is also how you can recognize under which simulation you're currently working, and the garment itself will develop in stages. And once you have the feeling it's done, you can stop the simulation, simply click again, wait a second until it's off, and when we rotate now, we can see how smooth and soft the fabric looks now. Once this is done, we can now take a look at the colors we saw in the technical sheet. To do this a bit more easily, I will use the colorway editor. Colorway editor is up here under simulation. I simply go to the drop-down menu, open my colorway editor, and here I can see that the fabric that I have currently applied has already a color. I can also simply desaturate it, so I click on it in the object browser, go to texture in my property editor. Then I can tick on the box for desaturation, which literally means it's taking the color from my texture away, but the material remains. Just like this, you can see it also here directly in the 3D window. And now I can change the color by going directly to the color tab. And also here in my integrated Pantone library, I can either pick colors a bit more random as I want to, but I can also type in the color codes from the sheet directly that I have down here and then enter them into the color menu to find the exact same colors as stated on my technical sheet. The easiest way to get the number would be to copy and paste. So I select my first color, simply press Ctrl C. So later on I can paste it in my color menu here in CLO. Right here is the box for it. I simply paste it, and as soon as I hit the icon, the color comes up, so I can simply select it and click OK. Everything updates automatically also in my 3D window. And if I want to add 2 more colors, I can use now my colorway editor, hit the little plus icon on the top right corner, add in 2 more, and name them accordingly to colorway A, B, and C, just like this. Moving forward from here, I can now directly select the material under the specific colorway and then click on the color menu here in the property editor, type in the next color name, just also copying this one from the technical sheet. Simply copy it, paste it in here, search for it, select it, and then click OK again. And now you can see how the color on the material automatically got updated, also in the 3D window. One last time for the third color. Same process again. And then here it seems like I had the wrong colorway selected, so I will simply redo this process quickly on colorway C, make sure I have the correct one this time, look for it again, edit in the colorway, and then say OK again. This time I have now 3 different ones in my colorway menu. And if I update on the top left button, I can see now all 3 versions also in the little preview here. When I click and switch between them, 3D window is updating itself automatically. And if I go back to simulation under the drop-down menu, I can choose in which version I want to move forward. If my project contains all the information that I want to share, I can then directly share it via CLO-SET, via this little button up here on the right. Select in which file type I want to share. In this case, I select Share Project. So then this page comes up, takes a second to load. I can say OK if this window pops up. And if the upload file page pops up, I can choose update an existing style, select the style I want to update, go and click on next. Also here it takes a while to upload a new file, just to all the information. While I'm waiting, I can see here it created a new project file on the platform, and here I can now also modify my view settings. I can turn on and off the avatar if I don't want to see it. Simply here in this menu, I can switch between all different colorways because this information was already included in my project file. The next stage would be the trend manager who requested this style will be checking this outfit. That means this person will log in into CLO-SET and then check and comment on it. In this person's account, they will be able to see the same project file if I shared it with them. Also here under notifications, they can see some updates, load the project and then review it. Also here, same ability to switch between colorways, turn the avatar view on and off as well. And then there's also the function to comment on this garment. Here they can check between the colorways. And if they want to comment, they can use this button on the top right corner, simply draw around it, and then use this post-it function if they want to make some annotations to certain points. If they decide to post it and complete, the person who shared this file with them will be able to see this as well. Once this person has completed their comments, I will get a notification in my CLO-SET account and can then take a look at the annotations directly by clicking on it. I will directly see there is 2 new annotations, so I will check them by directly clicking on them. Here, one comment requests that the length of the sleeve should be shortened to 14 inches. And the second one is simply a request to show another Pantone color code as well. From here, I take the annotations and go back into the software, open up CLO again. And first of all, I will use the point of measure tool to find out the current length of my actual sleeve. So I click once at the sleeve head, click at the end here where it's attached to the cuff, and then click again where the cuff starts and double click at the center of this cuff pattern piece because this is folded up in the middle. And then I can see here the measurements on each pattern piece before I start reducing it by the amount that was requested. In order to do so, I will first reverse my high resolution properties. So before editing my pattern piece itself, I also have to remember I need to change my resolution settings. So here I click on low resolution under the high res garment menu and set the particle distance to 10, then click OK. And the reason why I chose a value of 10 is because if you set the particle distance too high all at once, it can also cause collision when simulating. So it's recommended to do it step by step. Then I simply press the spacebar and simulate. And once it's simulated, I stop the simulation again and can now finally start to reduce the length of my sleeve. So with edit pattern, I grab the hem here where it's attached to the cuff, move it up and right mouse click to get up my moving distance window. Here I type in the number I want to reduce it, so 3.5 inch. And then I also adjust my arrangement a little bit for a smoother simulation. Just put up the cuffs here manually as they are already simulated. And when I simulate, I also realize that these cuffs now are not wide enough because also the width of the sleeve hem here changed. So I just make the cuff here also a bit wider. Step by step, I can check the width in between. Here, if I grab and select these lines, and then I just make the whole pattern piece wider, simulate again to get a stable simulation. And when I now look at my cuffs, I also here have some intersection. It gets more visual if I change to textured surface view. So here I can choose the select mesh tool up in the 3D menu bar to locate where my intersection happens. So here, if I hover over the pattern, I see the marked green areas on my 3D garment as well. Like this, I can easily find out which area is hidden and then click on it, pull it out with the gizmo and simulate again. Then I'll just modify the simulation here and the arrangement by pulling slightly on my cuffs manually with my select move tool with simulation on. And once I'm happy with it, I will then select all my patterns, just checking from all sides. Select all patterns at once. You can do this by Control A and then reduce the particle distance again to 5. You can also choose high resolution garments. Click OK here. Simulate again. Again, here you see that my arrow is red, so I'm in high resolution simulation, and I will let it simulate in stages until it's done, then stop the simulation again. And now that I'm done with this, it looks really nice, and I can continue by adding in the next colorway, which was also requested in this round of comments. So I go again to simulation up on the right corner, open the drop-down menu, select colorway, click again on the little plus to add in colorway D. And also here, I just type in the name accordingly, can then select the material, and here again go to the property editor, click on the color tab. Now I have to make sure I copy the right color code from my comments in CLO-SET. So I can paste it in the color menu here in CLO. Just paste it, look for the number, and then I click OK when I have the color selected. Also will update my colorway editor preview. So I can then take a closer look at all my color changes. I can see them all. And when I'm happy with it, I can also switch between them. Now I go back to simulation, and one last thing I want to get rid of is the point of measure, as I don't need it anymore. So I select my edit point measure tool, hover over and select the point of measure that I set earlier to change the sleeve. Right mouse click and delete it. And once this is done, I can then refine again a few settings on the parts at my garment where the cuffs, for example, or the hem are folded. So I select all of them at once. And because the particle distance is already at 5, I can also modify the mesh itself a bit more. If you scroll down in the property editor to miscellaneous, you can also change the mesh type here from triangle to quartz. And then if I turn on the mesh view to quickly show the effect, you can see here the mesh type has changed, which will also create smoother edges where the folded parts are just around here. And this also just enhances the quality of the garment itself for presentation reasons. So now that I'm happy with everything, I will share it for a second round of comments. Again, I will choose the Share Project via CLO-SET button. If I click here, I make sure I select Share Project. I can click OK here. I will also select Upgrade an existing style. This means the project I uploaded earlier will get updated. You can see this also here on the left side. There is also now a history of project files that you uploaded. And here is now visible, there is one more colorway, and also the sleeve measurements have changed. So now the person I'm collaborating with on this garment can comment on this as well. If I want to continue, also get my garment ready for presentation, I can create render images. That means a photorealistic image of my garment. This time I will create render images without my avatar. So I go to the toggle menu and deselect show avatar. I can also press Shift A on my keyboard. And if I now start the interactive render preview in my render window, I will get an immediate preview of my 3D area. So here you can see as I move my garment around, it also changes. And if I select image video properties, I can adjust the size of my image. I can also select where I want to save it. if I tweak the image size here, I can also type in a different width for pixels. So now I have the square image size, and I can also modify the background, for example. You can see here I can place it as I want. If I want to get rid of the white in the color background, I can also tick on this little box for transparency. So you can see the background is now transparent, and I can now create custom views with a right mouse click in the 3D window. I can screenshot the current view, and if I rotate it around, then adjust again the garment in the image also with the help of my render preview. Click on the little camera icon again to take a snapshot of this view, rotate it around, take another one, and then create another custom view of my back view. As soon as I do this, I can switch between the saved snapshots for my custom views, and I can then select them in my property editor under image and video properties to make sure that all of them can get rendered at once. So here under image video viewpoint, you can select custom views, which means later on everything will get rendered at the same time, and I don't have to create the renders separately. I can also select render all colorways and have that transparency selected. Also here under file name, I can set it to be named for the project name or type in a name that I want. So then I will stop the render preview and hit the final render button to create photorealistic images with a very high resolution for also presentation reasons. So the little bar on the top right of your render window also shows you how far the rendering process is, and you can see how many images are already created, so you can roughly estimate when your rendering process will be finished. Once your rendering is done, you can then go back to CLO-SET, and here under versions you can upload more images for a turntable. So if you select turntable images here, you will get this little input window where you can select the little camera icon to upload these 4 rendered images to create a turntable for colorway 1. So here if you click on it, you can select all 4 of them. Say okay, add in another colorway, do the same for this one, just add in all 4 images. And if you then select upload, it will create small turntable videos that can also be used for presentation reasons. Just press play here. You can also switch between the colorways, and this would then be, for example, the end of a workflow from beginning to end to share with a collaborator also via CLO-SET.